Alright, without wasting any time getting straight into it, here are the 6 best gun combinations you can use in Apex Legends Season 21. I'm going to be separating these into 3 different categories. The first is going to be short range, the second is going to be mid range or mix of both, and the third is going to be long range. And in each category, I'm going to give you 2 sets of weapons. The first is going to be a little easier, and the second one's going to be a little harder, but it'll probably give you a little bit more damage output. Diving straight into it, the first set of weapons in the short range category is going to be the Prowler and the Mastiff. The Prowler is a 5-burst SMG. It takes heavy ammo. Each bullet to the body does 15 damage, and each bullet to the head does about 18 damage. So a full burst to the body will do about 75 damage, and if you're somehow cracked enough to get all 5 bullets to land on their head, you're doing 90 damage. Obviously, it's a burst, so it does have some range, but the best way to use this gun is to get up close and to hip fire. It's a really accurate hip fire weapon, and that's why I paired it with the Mastiff. The Mastiff, being a shotgun, obviously is going to be good up close. The Mastiff is a shotgun with a bullet spread of 8 pellets, and the pellets are perfectly horizontal with each other, okay? So you really don't want to use this at any type of range past short range. If you're one of those people that tries to snipe people with a Mastiff, get off the game. But being a shotgun, it does a really good job up close, obviously. Each pellet does 11 damage to the body, so if you hit all 8, that's going to be 88 damage to the body. And a headshot with the Mastiff is doing 13 damage per pellet, and it's doing 104 damage if you're hitting every single pellet on their domicron. This set of weapons is really good if you're just trying to pub stomp, you're just trying to get in really aggressive, or maybe if you're a Gibby and you're trying to bubble fight, it's a pretty solid pick. You got 2 really good close-up weapons, and you can absolutely delete people with this combination of guns. The second set of weapons for the close-up category, I know for a fact that you've seen, and you've probably been hit with it, and when you die, if you look at their name, they're 99% of the time gonna say TTV right in front of their name, okay? This is gonna be the Wingman and the PK. This is gonna be a little bit harder to use than the previous one because obviously the Wingman is not a burst, it's a single shot, so you have to land those shots, but if you do land those shots, they're gone. The Wingman does 45 damage to the body and 86 damage to the head, and it has a 6-round mag. That means if you hit every single bullet to the body, it's 270 damage, and if you land straight headshots, you're doing 516 damage. The PK, being a shotgun, obviously also does really well up close, but it's going to do more damage than the Mastiff. It's got an 11 pellet bullet spread in the shape of Patrick from SpongeBob, and each pellet is going to do 9 to the body and 11 to the head. That means if you land all the pellets to the body, it's doing 99 damage, and if you're landing all pellets to the head, that's going to be doing 121 damage. Moving right along to the second category, it's going to be the mid-range. I'm just letting you guys know, neither of these weapon sets are going to be very hard to use, but the second weapon set is going to be a little bit harder to use than the first one. The first one is going to be the Volt and the Hemlock. The Volt is probably my favorite SMG right now in the game, and it has a super easy recoil control. I surprise myself every single time I try to shoot somebody from far and just absolutely beam them. This is why I'm going to put it in the mid-range category, because yes, it's an SMG, but you can absolutely beam people from mid-range and maybe even long range if you're cracked enough, if you got the right sight. The Volt carries 19 bullets, and that's if you don't have any extended mag with it, and it does 15 damage to the body and 18 to the head. So that means with all body shots, you're doing 285 damage, and with all headshots, you're doing 342 damage with no mag. This is an extremely good SMG. And then the gun it's paired with, the Hemlock, probably one of the best guns in the game right now, to be honest, is going to be a 3-round burst doing 20 damage to the body per bullet and 32 to the head. That means if you're landing all 3 bullets to the body, you're doing 60 damage, and if you're landing all 3 bullets to the head, you're doing 96 damage. The Hemlock also has very easy recoil control, and you can put a barrel stabilizer on it. The second weapon set in this category is going to be the Havoc and the Hemlock. I told you, it's not very different, and it's not that much harder than the Volt and the Hemlock, but the Havoc does have harder recoil than the Volt, and it does put out more damage. The Havoc with no mag carries 24 bullets, and it does 18 damage to the body and 29 damage to the head. That's kind of crazy. Landing every bullet to the body means you're doing 432 damage, and every bullet to the head, you're doing 696 damage. That's almost 700 damage. Are you hearing what I'm saying? A Kraber shot to the body does 140 damage. I mean, there's not much I really need to say. This is probably going to be my go-to weapon set for the entirety of this season, I'm going to guess, and ranked and everything else. I do need to get better with the Havoc's recoil control, but once you can get that down, you can absolutely beam people and just delete their shield. And just, yeah, it's bad. It's pretty bad. And for our last category, the long range, this is going to be if you're like trying to damage farm or something. This is really the only situation where I would use these. They're not horrible combinations, but there's just better combinations. For the first set of weapons, the easier ones, we're going to do the R301 and the triple take. I would usually pretty much never pick up the R301 at the stage that it's at and how many nerf it's gotten. There's just so many better ARs and bursts and stuff that just do what it does but better. But the reason I think it's one of the best options you have for the long range category is because it has really good recoil control. You can still kill people up close, so if you do get pushed, you're not completely screwed over. Like, it has a hip fire that's not atrocious, but again, it has really easy recoil control, and you could put a barrel stabilizer on it, and you could put a scope like a 3x and a 2x4 on it and just laser people from out far too. I already did briefly mention the damage that it can put out, but just to reiterate real quick, with no extended mag, it can carry 18 bullets. It does 13 damage per bullet to the body, 21 damage per bullet to the head, and if you're landing every single bullet to the body, you're doing 234 damage, and every single bullet to the head, you're doing 378 damage. Can we just talk about this for a second? If you're landing every single bullet to the head with the R301, you're doing 378 damage, but if you're landing every single bullet with the Havoc to the body, you're doing 432 damage. Something doesn't sound right. And off to its partner, the triple take, it's gonna have a 3 pellet bullet spread that's gonna be completely horizontal. It's also gonna be a pretty tight bullet spread. Even if you do hip fire, it's relatively tight. But if you scope in, kind of like the PK, it has a thing where it kind of tightens the bullet spread the longer you hold it in. If you land all 3 pellets to the body, you're doing 63 damage, and then all 3 pellets to the head, you're doing 102 damage. This is a very, very good long range weapon, obviously to damage farm and just anything else, just to piss people off or just to burn through people's shields or bats or something. But it's also very easy because it's forgiving. Since it does have a bullet spread, you don't have to be perfectly on that mark because you do have some wiggle room left and right. And finally, the best combination for long range, keep in mind, for long range, if you're just trying to damage farm, the best combination of guns I would go with would be the Hemlock and the Sentinel. Both of these guns can really fry. If you really, really need to, you can hip fire with the Hemlock. It's not my favorite gun to hip fire with, to be honest. It's kind of sus. It's really good mid to long range. I already talked about its damage output. And then the Sentinel is going to be just pretty much just like a mini Kraber. It does have the downside of needing to be charged with cells if you really want to have it at its full efficiency. But without charging it with cells, it does 70 damage to the body and 126 damage to the head, which is really good. But if you do charge it, it's doing 88 damage to the body and 158 damage to the head. With Purple Shield, I think you can 2-tap if you have it charged. If you made it this far, thank you so much. If I told you some stats that you didn't know, like how much damage the Havoc does compared to the 301, which I didn't even know before making this video, then think about leaving a like, subscribing. This is gonna be my, what, 6th video-ish doing long form content. I'm very, very new to this. I'm having a lot of fun. It's been less than a month and I'm planning on keeping going. So thank you guys so much and I'll see you in the next video. Turn the show.